Hi, Director DeAndrea.
Hello.
Looks like we don't have a quorum yet.
No, we'll just hang on a few minutes.
Yeah.
And you guys are about to lose me for a few minutes here. I'm still in the car. I'll be back on as soon as I get back home. I'm about 5 minutes out. So
Okay.
sorry about that.
Wow. Get a tan.
Carson, Brittany moved you over to be a co-host as well, just FYI.
Yeah. I've been I added member Borman or Vice Chair Borman and member Kawanabe to the panelists. I'm not sure.
Okay,
Hello,
good.
Mr. Lieberman. Are you a citizen that would like to speak?
I'm the president of Englewood Unleashed. And I am here for the presentation on the findings of the dog park survey.
Okay,
I think you might be in the wrong spot then. Do
yeah,
you know Director DeAndrea what he's talking about?
Uh-oh.
it's the regular city council study session. And if you go to the city website, there's two meetings tonight. So this is the garbage one, and then there's another one. I can send you the link if you wouldn't mind giving me your email address.
Let's see. It is Englewood Unleashed Parks at Gmail. So on what you guys are talking about, are you talking about just hiring one company to pick up all the trash throughout the city?
Yeah, the possibility of that.
It would only stand to reason that would lower the cost, it would seem. Are you finding
Potentially,
that to be the-
possibly, but we're about to start a meeting, sir. So you're welcome to attend as an attendee. But we're not in an open public forum right now.
Well, I guess I'll stay here till the other meeting doesn't start till 6:45. So if I could just mute and listen in, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you, sir. So we have 5. What is our quorum number?
It should be 5. Mr. Lieberman, I just sent you that link, so hopefully you'll get that on your email there. Yeah, so you should be okay.
Okay, let's go ahead and start the meeting. We don't have everybody, but we have a quorum. So will you please take roll, Director DeAndrea?
Okay. All right. So Chair Green,
Present.
Vice Chair Borman,
Here.
Member Brown,
Here.
Member Labe,
Here.
Member Kawanabe,
Here.
and Member Brinker.
Here.
Thank you, Chair. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve our minutes from April 5th?
I'll approve the minutes from April 5th.
Okay, motion to approve from Member Brown. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank
This is
you,
Kanji.
Member Kawanabe. Let's go ahead and vote by using the raise your hand feature, please. Or I guess, never mind. We're not doing it that way. Director DeAndrea, you call roll because we have to have it on like vocal record. Is that the appropriate way?
It's preferred, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Just because the way Zoom works.
Yeah,
All right. So Chair Green,
yes.
Vice Chair Borman,
Yes.
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
and Member Brinker.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And we did have that other citizen as an attendee, but he went away and I don't see anyone else. Are you aware of any other public comment or input?
We have not received any as of this afternoon.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So then we will move past the recognition of public comment. And Director DeAndrea, do you want to take us through the things you need us to address?
Yes, thank you. I'll start sharing my screen here.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So there were a couple of outstanding items. So we've gone through the 4 question and answer sessions with the garbage haulers who wish to speak to the committee. And so there were just a couple of outstanding items related to the RFP that I thought we could go through tonight and just get the committee's input on those items. So we wanted to talk specifically about composting, how we take the penalty revenue and where that should go, and then multifamily dwelling. So those were the 3 topics that we'll talk through. So I'll start, and Member Brinker also had commented on these. So some of this text is from her. So thank you, Member Brinker. So for composting, our current recommendation was to do a separate standalone RFP for either a preferred provider or bulk pricing for composting, meaning that the haulers for this are existing or current RFP that we're working on could offer to provide compost at an additional service, or they could choose not to bid on that element of the RFP. And then we would issue a separate RFP to just do composting within the community at a certain price. And we'd market that to homeowners in a similar way. And then you would add it to your monthly charge as an additional service that you would opt into. So the modification that is going to be considered, that we'd like to consider tonight, is issuing that standalone RFP for both opting into compost service and green waste service, where the compost green waste would go to a non-landfill facility, so somewhere where it would be composted. And then, as it says there, allow providers to bid for just the compost, just the green waste, or both. So again, this would be a separate RFP. And the RFP would go out at the same time as the trash and recycle RFP, and then basically take those elements out of that current RFP that we're working on for the garbage and recycling services. So this was some of the feedback that we got from the haulers, was that they use a separate truck for picking up those materials, both composting and the green waste, in a separate truck anyways. So there wouldn't be any infrastructure or time savings related to that. And then feeling from at least one of the compost haulers that we heard from was that this would put them on a more competitive or equal footing when it would be able, when we would go through those, to just bid out the composting service. So with that, Chair Green, I'll turn it back to you for discussion and be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. So one thing that maybe I'm not totally clear on, excuse me, is didn't we find out that, hold on, I'm going to clear my throat. Didn't we find out that compost and green waste are basically the same? It's just comes down to bin size, like, because some compost options are a very small container that's weekly, and then, but sometimes it's larger and would fit green waste, or was it, or are there actually separate locations that those go to?
Yeah, I thought the food was taken to a different location. Most of the, I believe the green waste is going to A1 Organics, which is, there's a facility in Commerce City, and I believe maybe also up in Keensburg, or that's the ultimate location. And then the food waste may go to a different source, but others may remember better.
Yeah, thank you. Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. They went to separate locations.
Okay.
to be biodegraded. My question was, as far as logistics goes for the billing, would it be the same for this RFP for the compost, both the green waste and the food waste? And just the premise for that question is it out of scope?
So you're wondering, like, if we did them as a separate RFP, would that fit within our one recommendation to city council for them to include that in city billing, or whether one could be approved and one could be not, or can you explain that a little further?
Sure. So the second part is it out of scope? Like, is it beyond the question of the committee to advise on the composting as well, outside of the single hauler? And the question on the logistics is exactly what you said. Like, are we just going to do it in line with exactly what we're doing with the one trash hauler as far as like logistics on the billing? And then how would we scope it out for, are there the same penalties, that sort of thing?
And Director
Good
DeAndrea, do you
questions.
think it's possible to do, like, does it make it too complicated to potentially do both? Like, keep it the way we have it, where the haulers have the option to include it or not if they want to, and then also do a standalone one so that, like, as we know, there's at least one company that only does compost that would potentially want to bid on that.
Yeah, I can certainly, to the first question, I think it's completely within the realm of the, what the committee is charged with, is how we set up the different contracts and how we might, structure this. So I think that's good. I think, offering it through both the RFP, the kind of the garbage and recycling one, as well as a standalone, could certainly, we could do that. I think because at least the way I understood it, or maybe this was my understanding, is that the companies are subcontracting that element out anyways, or
I
maybe
see.
not. So they may
Maybe
still
not.
work with that company, maybe not, or some of them do, but I think we would want to encourage them to work with a provider for the compost, but I guess we can't require it. So it might be best to, at least in order to be competitive, to allow it within the current kind of garbage RFP that we're working on, and also issue a separate standalone.
And I would say that we'd want, if we do it that way, and make sure, I mean, I believe we already have the plan for this, but the RFP is intended to be a la carte. So if it should be structured such that it makes it clear that if we accept and don't accept, if the city council accepts or doesn't accept parts of the proposal, it doesn't like break the other parts that they've offered.
Yeah.
Member Brown?
I was just wondering, since it says that you need another truck to pick up the compost, how big are these trucks? I mean, are they the same as like regular garbage trucks?
I don't know. I got the sense that they were in a similar scale, though, as the regular garbage trucks.
But this would be, if I'm understanding correctly, this would be on a different day than normal garbage pickup.
Most likely, yes.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, isn't one of the reasons why we are trying to do a single haul trash to save on the roads?
Yes.
And if you're going to have another truck coming down, I guess I don't understand the reasoning on that.
And I think it's weighing the benefits of gathering compost and not having to go to a landfill versus having that additional truck. And I think whether we went through the current, if we made it part of the current RFP for garbage service, the haulers, or whether it's a standalone compost service, either way they would use a separate truck. So there's really no, as the rationale there says, there's really no infrastructure savings. So the only way to kind of save that from an additional vehicle would be to not offer compost service.
Which if we didn't, then that would still leave it open for citizens who wanted to take advantage of it to coordinate that themselves. And then those trucks are, however many as that demand grows, that would be more trucks. But I mean, I hear your point, Member Brown. And Member Brinker, go ahead.
We definitely heard a lot of feedback from residents that they were interested in compost. So even though we found that it might not be price competitive to include it full out automatically in our in a single hauler program, I definitely think it's still worth us looking down the path of a separate RFP or including it in the menu. Like we'd previously talked about, I think we almost owe that to all the citizens who commented that they were interested in compost.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of both. I don't know if there's support for that. Member or Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I really like the idea of us doing this where we put it out to the haulers, because it'd be great if we could do it all in one
Yeah.
hauler, because I do think that that could save us some money, do all that sort of stuff. But I do think it's very possible that a company that specializes in composting and green waste might actually do a better job, or might actually be able to do it better, because some of them sounded like they didn't even really do it, kind of like they were
Yeah.
saying third party sort of things anyway. I think this way it keeps it within our purview as doing the single hauler. We also open it up to outside people if they can do it for cheaper and better. I don't see why we don't change it to be able to do separate opt-in for the single hauler, but also the independent RFP.
Do you want to say that as a motion?
Sure. I'm going to just read the proposed recommendation. I propose that, I motion that we issue a separate standalone RFP for either a preferred provider or bulk pricing for opt-in compost service and opt-in green waste service, where the compost green waste goes to the appropriate non-landfill facilities. It also will allow us to bid for just compost, just green waste, or both. And then issue that RFP at the same time as the trash and recycling RFP. Not including composting or green waste in the trash and recycling RFP.
So I thought you were going to do it with both, where we allow it to go
That's
through.
what I was saying is both. That's what I understood the motion.
So
to
without
be.
basically it's the motion without the last sentence, right, Director
Oh yeah,
DeAndrea?
sorry, I was
Correct.
just reading the
Yeah.
whole thing. Sorry.
Mhm.
No problem. Is there, so that the motion as stands is what's written as the proposed recommendation without the last sentence. Is there a second?
We could say, and just change the word don't, it also
Sure.
include composting
Yeah.
and green
Okay.
wasters in the trash and recycle RFP.
Do you accept that friendly amendment, Vice Chair Borman?
I do.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and write it, Director DeAndrea, so we all see it? Thank you. Okay, so motion as stands, is there a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Member Kawanabe. Director DeAndrea, will you please take a vote?
Okay. Chair Green,
Yes.
Vice Chair Borman,
Yes.
Member Brown,
No.
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
and Member Brinker.
Yes,
That motion carries.
Thank you, Director DeAndrea.
So our next discussion item so we had the potential to modify the current recommendation, which was to, if we did collect penalties and made some revenue from that, the idea would be is that we would credit the household, or the affected household, with one amount, or for a month, crediting them for 1 month of service charges. And then the remainder would go 2/3 towards our low-income household assistance, our CAP program, and 1/3 going towards education and outreach efforts. And there's an idea to maybe modify that slightly with the text shown in red and underlined, that the affected household would still receive that 1 month service charge credit, but then the remainder of the penalty amount would go towards the low-income household bill payment assistance and or education and outreach. So basically at staff's discretion. So rather than specifying 2/3 versus 1/3, that would be up to staff. So I'll turn it back to you, Chair, for discussion.
Thank you. So Member Brinker, you suggested this, right?
Right.
Was there like, did you find out like information about why our original plan would potentially be a problem, or what was the rationale behind the change?
The rationale is that we're presuming that their penalties are really only going to be the missed pickup type things. And I don't expect that there will be very many penalties on the other things, which were a lot more egregious. So if it's a very small pot of money, it wouldn't go as far towards either one of those items, but it might be nice to allow staff the discretion to put what could be a very small amount of money towards where it's best used, still within those categories.
Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I like this idea mostly just because the 2/3, 1/3 sounds very rigid to me. What if we hit a point where, there's enough money to do education and things like that, but there's still not enough money towards going towards the low income housing or the low income household assistance? I think it could be really important to have that flexibility for staff, and yet it still keeps the pot of money still within the same two programs.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Member
I think
Cullen,
they.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Vice Chair Borman.
No, you're fine. I was just saying, I think they do need the flexibility.
Member Kawanabe.
Yeah, I'm okay with this. I'm with Christine. After the discussions with the carriers, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a whole lot of revenue generation there. I mean, it was 99.98% that they were hitting, and that came from 2 of the 4 haulers, right? And so I'm okay with that. I just wanted to bring that up, right? Like, we're looking at a smaller pot of money than we had originally thought.
Did you have something else, Vice Chair Borman?
Nope, just always
Oh,
forget
okay.
to lower my hand.
Okay. Does someone want to make the motion? Or any other thoughts?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I move when there is a missed pickup or failure to resolve a customer issue in the time frame specified, that month's service charge will be credited to the affected household, with the remainder of the penalty amount going towards low-income household bill payment assistance and or education and outreach about waste reduction and recycling at staff's discretion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion.
I heard Vice Chair Borman. And Director DeAndrea, will you please take a vote?
Yes. Chair Green,
Yes.
Vice Chair Borman,
Yes.
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
and Member Brinker.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Please continue.
All right, and then finally, we had this discussion, but the committee never made a motion on it we talked about multifamily dwellings, and that we could include multifamily dwellings between 4 and 7 units in the RFP. I had followed up with our community development department and found that there are 44 separate buildings that house between 4 and 7 units. They did not have a further breakdown of that, so we don't know how many have 4 versus 5 versus 6 versus 7. But in the entire community, there are 44 such properties that fall within this category. So I think the question is, do you want to consider this as part of the RFP to allow that service, either require or allow multifamily dwellings to opt in. I'll pass it back to you for discussion, Chair Green.
Sure. I don't see any hands up, so I'll start saying my thoughts, or go ahead, Vice Chair Borman.
I was just gonna say that I'm still unsure of whether that we can get them to have the space to be able to do recycling. I think we should probably require them to do it by city code, but I'm not sure how well it'll fit, because I wonder if they'll have a dumpster out back of one of these places, but they only have room for one dumpster. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work, because they didn't seem to give us much more information from the haulers. So
I don't think we necessarily have to make it, like, have to know how it's going to happen, but I think there's a good chance that if we were to vote on this, we would all agree that it's worth recommending to city council to do this, should the city council move forward with making it required for everyone else. And maybe
are we
that's,
talking about just the 4 to 7 units, or are we talking about larger units?
well,
as
I guess
well?
there's two parts of this, right? There's, are we going to recommend to city council that they require recycling for multifamily? And then separately, are we going to consider multifamily being a part of the RFP or not? Those are two separate things. Member Brinker?
I think that we already agreed on the larger properties, multifamily, that we would recommend to city council that they do require those larger multifamily properties to offer recycling. But we don't say what provider they need to use, and we can't.
That was
say
one of
what
our votes
provider
already?
They need to use. Yeah, that was one of our
Okay,
votes.
thank
So
you.
I think,
Yeah, I thought it sounded like it
Yeah.
was. Okay.
so I think that sticks unless we undid it with the 2/3 majority, but I don't think we decided on those multifamily dwellings that are 4 to 7 units.
Right.
And specifically whether they should be included in the single hauler effort or into the bigger multifamily unit recommendation. And there seems to be 2 ways to go. One would be to include it in the RFP. The other is, I think, what one of the haulers recommended, that we basically survey those units and try to get them interested in what would be a bulk pricing. And we'd say to the single hauler, we have these X number of properties and they'd like the commercial pricing. What kind of deal would you have for them? So there's those kind of ways to go.
Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, I think this is another issue for me. I just don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, right? And chase and add more and more to this RFP. That's my biggest concern. I just don't have an idea about it, what type of units that they're using for the trash, right? So are they going to have to use a different truck to service these buildings versus do they require 7 separate or 14 at that point, different trash bins? Do we have any information on that, Director? Do you know?
No, but I would guess that they're using more of like a dumpster than an individual barrels, especially if you get up over 4.
Which makes sense. And I think at that point, it for me, I think it takes it out of scope.
Yeah, I feel like it makes it more complicated as well, as much as I'm for bulk
Same.
negotiation. I mean, Member Breaker, do you see a way to do this where it doesn't make it too complicated?
You know,
Yeah.
I think
Anybody
it makes
else?
it complicated. Yeah, for sure. But like you said, even though we want to encourage recycling, it doesn't fit very well within what we've discussed so far, as far as 96 gallon or 32 gallon or those different options. We're talking about dumpsters here. So maybe going at it later through a separate effort to find out which of these units would be interested in kind of going together to see if they can get a better deal together, and that might include small businesses as well, but not doing it through this RFP.
Vice Chair Bor, oh, sorry.
Sorry, one more thought then. If we do go that way, I would want to make sure that, I think that these units are included in our previous vote where we said multifamily should be required to offer recycling without specifying from whom. Because I think we left that general as multifamily, and I just want to make sure that that's the case.
Yeah.
That was
good
my
point.
take, Member Brinker. Yes.
So all that covers all residential that wouldn't be included in our up to 4 units or up to 3 units thing.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So they could
And
have 100 units and they would fall still under this.
Member Labe?
I think it was still I think it was just addressed, but I agree with what Member Brinker's saying about maybe, we get this kind of general RFP out and then get some information, and then based on whatever company we either go or don't go with, they could potentially offer something that is aligned with our goal. But it seems like it's maybe just complicating it and would deter the haulers from responding and looking like a good option if we add this in, is kind of my thought.
I agree. I mean, based on everything I've heard from everyone, I'd say we should probably just do a motion to exclude it from the RFP, and should we end up recommending to City Council to go with one of the proposals, and should City Council go with one of the proposals, that we recommend to them that after a deal has been made, then try and figure out a way for, that subset of 4 to 7 units to be able to, get in on it, but not make the whole thing dependent on it. I'm not sure what the best way to structure that as a motion would be. Does that make sense, Director DeAndrea?
Yep. I think I captured that as basically a motion to exclude multifamily units from the RFP, and then take this up, as Member Brinker said, at a future date, and almost through, once we have a hauler identified, that we would work with the hauler to reach out and offer services to both small businesses and multifamily dwellings.
All right. Well, I guess, I don't know if we want to call that the motion. Does that
Or
mean
feel free to
I made it?
reword that. So
All right, let me try, since no one else says, I'll try. So I make a motion that we exclude multifamily dwellings of 4 to 7 units from the RFP, and should City Council end up moving forward with a single hauler deal, that we recommend City Council reach out to the 4 to 7 unit properties and try to help them participate in the single hauler deal as a post deal.
Second.
Thanks, Vice Chair Borman. Will you please take a vote on that, Director DeAndrea?
Yep. Chair Green,
Yes.
Vice Chair Borman,
Yes.
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Kwabanabe,
Yes, to the deal.
and
Post-deal
Member
deal.
Brinker.
Yes. Yes,
That
to the
motion
deal.
carries.
Okay, so motion carried. All right. So this is probably the appropriate time. I know that Member Brinker submitted some other points of discussion that do you want to bring up any of those right now, Member Brinker, while we're kind of going through things?
Sure, we can discuss those now, unless Director Andre wanted to talk through the staffing first.
We'll come back to admin fees because that's like a separate thing on the agenda.
Okay. One thing that struck me when we were doing the interviews was their point about bags and bundles outside of the bin. And we had previously had a motion that says to include in the base trash service up to 5 additional bags beside the tote and up to 4 bundles of branches cut to 4-foot lengths. And so that's what we had noted, but they brought up the point that if we do go with pay as you throw, where we have a smaller option of cart available, that everyone would choose the cheaper cart option and then just put all our extra bags beside the cart, which would seem to be kind of a failure for everybody. That's the worst scenario. It's more expensive for the haulers, it's more expensive for households, and there's no incentive to reduce waste. And we do want to preserve the option, I think, for pay as you throw, because that's one of the things in the menu of options. We did hear a lot of public feedback that some households have difficulty wheeling those really large, bulky totes to the curb or even to the alley. So if we still want to keep that option open to have pay as you throw, which I think we do, then we would want to maybe reconsider this previous motion to allow that many bags and bundles next to the tote. But I think we're really talking about the bags more than the bundles. Because we know that bundles of branches are a special circumstance. They only come around a few times a year after a big storm, et cetera, or after you have a tree trimming, but it's really the extra bags of trash that we're talking about. So I thought of 2 ways we could go with this to consider. One would be to just say you can have bundles of branches next to the cart and not the bags. That's, I guess, option 1. Option 2, which I quite like, came up way early in our discussion months ago, and that's to essentially give each household a handful of free tags that they could put on a bag when they need it, whenever they needed it. So say you gave each household a half dozen tags each year. And then when they do have whatever it is, leaves, visitors from out of town, whatever it is that makes them have a lot more bags that then will fit in their normal tote, then they just stick with these tags on it. That's the general idea. And I assume that they can, give their tags to their neighbors if they don't want to use them. There could be a black market for tags.
Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I just remember the conversation when they were talking about kind of like what Christine was saying about people electing for the smaller size carts and then sticking things on the side. But I also remember them talking about that they were already getting rid of the, whatever they call it, the 96 gallon plus plans. And so we might be going backwards by trying to preserve this. And I sort of like the idea of giving people up to a certain number of tags per year. That way we minimize the cost to the citizens, because if they're assuming anybody can throw as much away as they want to, they're going to upcharge us as our base charge. So I think if we gave everybody, maybe even 10 free tags for attaching to things, or a dozen, something like that, it could get most people through the entire year. The other thing I was thinking about is going back to the branches, because I'm just dealing with all the branches myself around my house. I feel like we need to figure out a way to get rid of those branches. I know the green waste is an option, but we also could look at a different option in terms of asking the city to create a tree recycling location or branches recycling location that people could bring, bundles of branches or things like that in their car. But, I guess that's a whole separate issue. But I get mostly behind the giving us, I'd say a dozen free things through the whole year. And then that way they can count it in, or maybe 10. And that way we're not giving people unlimited amount to just throw things next to their garbage can. Because it did sound like they were trying to limit their risk to their employees, but also just the cost of having to get out of the trucks all the time.
I think, so my thoughts on this are, one, on the pay as you throw, 2 of the 3 that currently serve Inglewood citizens implied that that would be more expensive. So I feel like we're not going to end up with pay as you throw if we're going for best deal overall, because they're going to have to build more price into that. And if we do go with pay as you throw, it would be an easy thing to have this standard serve. Okay, well, let me back up. Also, all 3 of the haulers that currently serve Inglewood citizens, we learned they do provide this service for the citizens who've had their service for a long time. And I feel like it's not our job to make it easier for the haulers to reduce their service levels. We should be, at the very least, utilizing this opportunity of our collective bargaining efforts to ensure that they maintain existing service levels. So I'm against reducing, you guys know I'm against reducing this service level. And, part of what is giving us momentum to potentially get citizens on board with this is the fact that the haulers have dropped alley service. And that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to encourage citizens to be for going for a forced single hauler solution, is because it will be adding alley. I see the dealing with bags of leaves and bundles of branches as the same kind of thing, not making it easy for them to reduce the service level. And then when it comes to pay as you throw, I get the whole, if someone opts to a smaller cart, then they could be effectively cheating the system. And so make it so that you only get that if you have the biggest container. You don't have to take away the service level that people are used to. You can just make it so if you opt for the smaller container, should we go with pay as you throw, then you don't get to add bags on the side. That's only for the full size cart, and then equivalent service to what all 3 of those providers do currently provide to citizens who've been around for a while. Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, I was going to actually suggest the same thing, is just require or allow that for the largest bins. The other thing is, I didn't realize that we had said that you could throw anything in those bags. I think the original intent was to say that those bags were strictly for green waste, right? And maybe
That's
we
been
make
the
that
intent, but
explicit.
then the argument was, what are we going to do? Have them cut them open and verify? I mean, that is what they're used for. That's how people use it. But I don't know if you can.
Yeah, and I think what we would do is, just for optics wise, or not even just optics, but encouraging them just to say this is intended for green waste only, right? There's going to be people that cheat the system one way or the other, but I think my option would to believe in, still have faith in the community and saying, like, look, do the right thing, right?
Member Brown?
Yeah, I guess I'm seconding what you're saying, Chair Green, is that, I have my neighbor here on the corner, and he is always putting bags out there, and he doesn't get charged anything extra. And I guess he has waste services, and he's happy with them. And it just sounds to me like we're trying to appease the haulers instead of appeasing our citizens with the services. So that's all I have to say.
Member Brinker?
If, we go this way, I would prefer to explicitly limit it to green waste, rather than just hope it's mostly green waste, to make sure that we go what we're intending. And then as far as, previous discussion, we heard quite clearly from almost all of the haulers that if they have to get out and get extra bags, they're going to give us a higher price. We wish it wasn't that way, but they all said that that's the deal. It's more labor for them. It takes more time for them. So if our first primary goal of this entire process was to get a lower rate for citizens, then we'll want to do what we can to try to get a lower rate, and just allowing unlimited bags or some number of bags, 5 bags every week next to the tote, that's going to make our price so much higher.
Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I think if we want the lowest price, and I think what most citizens really want and everything is definitely the alley service. I think that is definitely an important thing. I guess I'm not ready to die on the hill to make this more expensive of a thing to be able to do an unlimited number of not unlimited, but the 5 additional bags or 4 bundles of branches every week in theory, because they might just build it into their price that they're going to assume that half of everybody is going to do that every single week. And I just worry that we're driving up our costs significantly by doing it like this. Because I was behind this at first. This is one of my things that I was really behind, but I don't know. I guess I was just hearing that every time they get out of the truck, they're going to charge us more. Or every time they assume they're going to be getting out of the truck, they're going to be charging us more. And that's why I like the idea of getting a certain number of free bags or free bundles without us being stuck paying it for everybody. Because like my neighbor across the way, they had a bunch of branches come down for their from their tree in the last storm, but they had a tree service come out and they came and they shredded that and took it all away. They didn't need any branches at all taken away. So they're going to be paying a higher price for essentially somebody like us who probably would, where I'd be okay paying the lower price and then paying even for additional bags or additional things individually, as long as it was a reasonable price per additional tag.
Member Brown.
Well, I'm just thinking of waste services that if they can charge you $16 a month, 2-year guarantee, and they pick up bags, I don't understand why the others can't do the same.
I agree, and that's true. And Waste Connections was vocally completely supportive of it. They were like quite accommodating and willing to have that be a part of it. It was primarily Waste Management that put up the biggest fight about trying to resist it, even though they've been offering that service for at least, to my knowledge, 20 years, because I've been here that long, and probably a lot longer than that. There are a lot of citizens in this city who are used to that level of service that's been provided all along. The fact is, the trash trucks going through the alley, even if we make a new deal, are still going to be the rear automated thing, which means there's already somebody moving the can physically to put the can to the back of the truck, and they can throw the bags in when that comes up as well. They want to resist it because they want to make more money. That's all there is to it. It's not our job to make it easy for them to make more money. And I don't agree that our only goal is lowest price. I think our goal is to get, if we're going to force a single hauler on citizens, then we should be focused on at least the existing service level, preferably better, and lower cost. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And if no hauler can do it, then back to the drawing board or negotiation. We don't have to make it easy for them to lower service levels and increase cost. It's a good deal for them. They're going to have, you know, potentially a 10-year fixed deal. And they currently provide this service right now. It's standard. So, Member Lib.
I just wanted to say that I also think that one of the goals that we initially had as a committee was just the environmental impact. And I think it's okay just to have, like, we're proposing something totally new to this community. And I think it's okay to have a bottom line of, like, this is kind of a basic trash service, and really we're urging people to have less trash and waste. And so I think by us eliminating the need for like additional trash outside of containers and things like that, I actually think is okay, because our goal is also about the environmental impact. And I think that we don't have to have like all of these like super flexible things, and maybe that would be great, and maybe it's not as appealing right away for everyone, but I do think that, you know, ultimately, in order to make it okay for people to have a bunch of trash bags outside their containers, like, it just feels like we're not necessarily sticking to our like value of what we're also trying to accomplish as this committee. And I understand that's not the sole purpose, but I think it's okay to not have so much flexibility is what I'm trying to say, I think.
Member Brinker.
I liked a lot of Member Lape's points. Those are really good. I wonder if we could consider a motion and then go from there. The motion would be to give each household a certain number of free included in the cost tags per year that they could put on branches or bags of green waste outside their bin. And after that, they pay the haulers their normal price for extra bundles or bags.
I'll say right now that if we go this route, I'm going to come out hard publicly against this, because it's a massive reduction in current service levels. I don't agree with this. I think that this is, there's no reason that the 3 haulers that are really the only ones who are capable of doing it, that are already serving Inglewood citizens and already providing this service, can't continue to provide this service.
Well, then two thoughts. One, we heard that they're going away from that model. They
They're
offer it now,
trying,
but there's
but
no
there's still
guarantee.
competition.
There's no guarantee that in a year they're going to offer that service. We can't count on that. Second of all, I think offering a number of tags each year is a good compromise where most people will be able to put the same number of bags outside and keep that convenience and keep that same level of service without skyrocketing the price for everyone else who doesn't need all that extra.
Arbitrarily picking a number of bags is, especially the number that was suggested of 6, is unfair to citizens. I don't even have that big a yard, and when I deal with leaves, it's even though I stand in the trash can stomping it down to pack as many leaves as I possibly can in each bag, it's more than 6 bags when I do one round of dealing with leaves. So it's you know, that's not enough. I mean, so 50, I mean, the truth is it's not going to probably be that many. And I don't agree that these haulers are going to assume that everyone's putting 5 bags out every week. They know what they currently get, which is when there's you know, weather events that break down branches and people have to deal with that, who can't afford to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars to a tree service to take care of it for them. And when there's, you know, once a year when people are dealing with leaves. Member Laib.
Sorry, I didn't put my hand down from earlier.
Member Brinker.
You can call on the other comments, but also as a point of order, I think when a motion is up, that you have to vote on it. I'm not sure specifics about the rules, but that's what I thought. it's okay.
I
with
didn't
me
hear
if
a
you want to hear
complete
the
motion.
extra.
We've got the way we've been doing this is we've been discussing and then, all right, if you want to, then I didn't hear the specifics of your motion.
Okay, in that case, why don't we hear from the other hands that are up and then I'll make it again.
Member Brown?
Yeah, I'm going to be totally against this. And one of the reasons why I'm going to be against this is that I have this huge tree in front of my house. And I have bags and bags of leaves, and I'm like you, Chair Green. I can stomp on them and get them as much as I can in the bags, but they just drop and drop and drop. And when I have broken branches, you know, I'm just not okay with this because I would rather honestly start all over again if this is what it's going to be, because I would just rather go with Waste Services and let them do it with, my own. I am totally against this. And it's not like I'm going to be putting bags out there every week or anything. It's going to be basically in the autumn or when we have bad weather or when my tree limbs break because of the weight of the snow. And I can tell you 12 bags will never be enough for me. My tree is way too big in my front yard. So I'm going to be opposing this. Thank you.
Vice Chair Borman?
Sorry, I'm swallowing. I don't know that there's a way around this. I think we just have to vote in a lot of ways. I'm trying to think, like, there has to be some sort of compromise between being able to put out as many as we want to over a year and putting out 6. Like, can we find a way that they include it in terms of a price? And if we have this as having the 5 additional bags plus 4 bundles of branches and then 1 price without, to be able to see if we could get a price difference between the two from the haulers. Is that an option, Director DeAndrea? Or is that too complicated?
No, just similar to the other options, it'd be part of that base service and then this would be an add-on. So assume that the base service is nothing outside the cans. And then if we were to add on, the motion of up to 5 additional bags and up to 4 bundles of branches, what would that additional cost be? We could certainly do that.
Is it possible that we could offer citizens a 96-gallon plus plan that they could sign up for and be okay with paying additional? Or is that, I don't know, I'm talking out loud here or just thinking out loud.
Yeah, we did have in there, if you wanted a second 96-gallon, there was a certain cost per month for that on top. So you could get 3 96 gallons if you wanted for either trash or branches or anything.
Member Kawanabe?
I actually like what Dane's saying. Right now, we're not having a full understanding of the ramifications of either of our choices, right? Like, so we don't know what they're going to come back with as far as like, if we do mandate this to be included, how much that price is going to draw up, right? Because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Member Brown, is your primary motivation was to keep the prices down, right? And so I think this would give us a better understanding and help us to get a better decision if we did what Dane was saying and giving us the 2 different options on that matrix, right? Just to see what that extra cost would be.
And Member Brown has expressed not wanting service levels to drop as well. Member Brown, your hand's up.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I don't know why the citizens have to conform to the haulers when it should actually, I feel, be the other way around. And yeah, I want the cheapest, of course. I think we all want a cheap rate, but I can get that right now. And that's $16, a month. So I don't understand why we have to pay extra for extra bags or whatever. I mean, I don't understand that thinking, I guess. So, but I'm opposed to it.
Agree. I don't understand why there's so much push to to make it easier for them to reduce their service levels that they're currently providing. Remember Brinker?
It sounds like we're maybe leaning towards a motion where our menu of options that we ask for in the RFP would include 3 things. One is cart only, and whatever extra you put outside of your cart, you pay per bag, which is what they responded in the last RFP. They said like a few bucks. The middle one would be, say, 6 tags per household or some other number. And the third one would be, as the motion was written, up to 5 bags per week of anything and 4 bundles of branches per week. But I was agreeing with member Wannabe that we don't know the full cost ramifications without seeing the actual numbers. And I also like member Labe's point about our goal of helping reduce the total amount of trash.
Well, you're not getting rid of total amount of trash by forcing citizens who have to deal with branches and leaves to have to pay extra or jump through extra hoops because the city has forced them into a single hauler system that takes away existing service levels. The fact is all 3 of the haulers currently provide the service, and there's enough room for them to make money that they're offering it for $16 a month with the 5 additional bags and 4 bundles of branches, and enough for a middleman of waste services to make money in the middle. So we know the numbers are such that they can do it because they're currently doing it and they've been doing it forever. Yeah, they would love it if they could have one guy driving a truck, then he pushes a button and the bins automatically go every time and they never have to do anything except bring in money. But we're representing citizens, and the fact is there's thousands and thousands of citizens that have been used to this service level for more than 20 years, probably 40 plus. And by not making that a requirement in the RFP, we're saying to city council, we're okay with city council picking an option that eliminates that basic service level that everyone is already used to. I would be more for some big number of tags, or what I think makes more sense is existing service level for the largest bin. I don't think pay as you throw is going to be financially effective. I think it's going to end up being the better deal is single size bins, and then there's no reason that the existing service level can't be what's a part of it. Vice Chair Borman, I guess you just took your hand down.
Chairman Green, was there a motion on the floor?
I don't know what the details of it are.
There was a motion made by member Brinker, but it was not seconded. So we can open up to a new motion, or
I can turn it into a new motion.
Go ahead.
That would be that we ask in the RFP for the base price. We also ask for the cost of free tags per household. And we also ask for the price of the previous motion. 5 bags and 4 bundles.
I'll second
Then
that.
that number should be at least 30.
Is that a friendly amendment?
Yeah. I mean, if she accepts it.
I wouldn't accept 30 bags a year, because then households that have a whole lot of bags of trash, whether those are leaves or whatnot, are dumping the cost of that onto households that maybe have 0 bags of trash, and I don't really think that that's fair to put the price there. I could see a few bags per year. It doesn't have to be that strict. But I wouldn't see unlimited bags. I want to keep the cost as low as possible for the most people as possible.
Well, then we should
So
just
that's
give up
my-
on this
I
because
don't-
right now the best deal is $16 a month with
Point of
5
order,
additional
can
bags
we-
and 4 bundles.
I had a motion on the table. And I don't accept the friendly amendment, sorry.
Is there
My
a second?
stance. My second stance.
Member Kawanabe seconded it.
Yes.
And what is the number that's a part of this?
Then,
All right, Director DeAndrea, please take a vote.
Would you mind if I read back the motion that I have?
Please
Chair
do.
Green? I had that we ask in the RFP for a base price without any materials outside of the bin, plus a price per tag for additional items, plus a price for the previous motion, which was up to 5 additional bags and 4 bundles of branches, basically per week. I did not get Member Brinker if there was a certain number of bags for free. I didn't catch that part. If there was.
She said
one.
10.
yeah, the middle option would be 10 bags, 10 tags per household.
Okay.
And what
thank
this
you.
will guarantee is that we lose the service level. Because there's no way that what's going to be picked, you know, they're going to bump up the price. We're basically making it easy for the haulers to eliminate the service because they're going to bump the price up because they'll be acting like it's not what it currently is, which is random. Sometimes people have extra. They're going to say, oh, if everyone every week is going to have all this extra, they're going to put it up so
Point
high
of
that
order,
of
I
course we
think
won't
we
get
had a
that.
motion on the table. Point of order.
That's right. And now we're discussing the motion that's on the table.
I thought that
Just-
once a motion was made
Nope,
and
that's not
seconded
how it
that we
works.
vote on it.
Nope, there's absolutely an opportunity for discussion until I ask the person to take the vote. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? Member Brown?
Yeah, I'm at the point where I just really feel like I want to scrap this. I would just prefer to go with waste services. I'm not going to make it easy on these haulers. Especially when I can get what I can get for $16 a month. So I'm not making it easy on these haulers. So my feeling is if we're going to keep adding and making it easier for them, I prefer we just scrap this whole thing.
I also think this is a disservice to citizens because we already voted on this. We didn't learn anything that reverses the fact that the 3 haulers that are currently serving citizens do include this in their existing packages that people have had and they're not eliminating. Yeah, they'd love to make more money and offer less service, but that's, you know, we don't have to make it easy for them. And when we voted for this, we were a more complete committee that represented the citizens. We had, you know, who's now city council member Ward, and we had member Frazier, and both of them voted for that as well. I feel like we're by structuring it the way this motion is structured, we're forcibly eliminating it because there's no way it's going to go through with the service level that people already have. Any other thoughts? All right, Director DeAndrea, please take a vote.
Okay. Chair Green,
No.
Vice Chair Borman,
Yes.
Member Brown,
No.
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
and Member Brinker.
Yes.
That motion passes 4-2.
Did our chairman drop?
No, I'm here. I'm just. All right. Member Brinker, do you want to bring up these other things?
Probably give me just a minute to find notes on what they are. The next thing to discuss after we all take a deep breath is on bin sizes. Since we already agreed that the RFP would ask for both uniform size and pay-as-you-throw size. The pay-as-you-throw options previously included 3 sizes, 30-something, 60-something, and 90-something. We also heard that costs may go up with the different sizes. So to lower costs, but also more than that, just to simplify things, if we do go with pay-as-you-throw, I wonder about eliminating the middle size category, the 60-something, and only asking for pricing for the 30-something and the 90-something.
Vice Chair Borman.
I like this idea just because I think what we heard from most citizens, if they wanted a smaller one, was because they really didn't have that many people living in their household, a single person, something like that. They didn't have much garbage, and also it would be difficult to move a larger one. So I think it's good that we offer a smaller option. But I also think, limiting our numbers is good, because that way, again, we try and get our lowest price. That way they don't have to stock 3 different sizes for replacements or for new residents or something like that. I think it's a smart way to go. Since it's just an option anyway, as the pay as you throw, I don't think it can hurt to just kind of keep us a small one and a large one.
Member Kawanabe.
Did they say that would reduce the cost if we went from 3 to 2 versus 3 to 1? I know they said from 3 to 1 would definitely reduce the cost, but was there any statement as to such of reducing the cost to 2?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't remember an exact thing about 3 to 2 being any better, but they did say the more options, the more complicated, the more expensive. So just by facts, I'm sure that 3 is more expensive than 2 because they have to deal with the different, inventory, et cetera, and tracking. So, it makes sense that 2 would be less expensive than 3, but the primary way to make it less expensive is have a single, from what we heard. Vice Chair Borman.
Member Brown, I thought one of your concerns was a large size of the 96 gallon. Am I correct in that?
I'm
ahead, Member
sorry.
Brown.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again, please?
Oh yeah. Well, I wanted your input in terms of sizing and things like that. I thought one of your concerns was dragging around the really large bin, the 96 gallon bin, because you live in a single person household. Do you have any opinion on having a 32, 64, 96 gallon? Would you be okay with just a 32 gallon, or is that?
No, that would be fine with me.
That would be fine with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else who would want a 64 gallon? I'm trying to understand the reason for the 64 versus a 32, or, we could do a 96 and a 64 for all I care, but I just wanted to know, why are we having 3 sizes?
Director DeAndrea, that was in the original RFP. Do you remember how that came about?
I think it's just typical of other communities have offered those 3 sizes as sort of a medium or high, medium, and large.
Do you want to make the motion, Member Brinker?
I didn't know if Vice Chair Borman had an initial comment. I thought his hand was up.
Did you have anything else, Vice Chair Borman?
No, I just forget to turn it off.
No problem.
Okay, the motion would be to narrow the pay-as-you-throw choices down to just 96 gallon and 32 gallon sizes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will you please take a vote, Director DeAndrea, unless someone else wants to talk about this?
I'd like to say something. Does it hurt to ask them what the difference would be? Again, this goes to the other question is like, I don't understand how much it's going to reduce the cost. Right. So maybe if we could get pricing on that, that would be my only comment.
We
I
can
mean, the only way
suspect
we'd
that-
get pricing on it would be to not make this change, because as it stands, we're asking for pricing on. I mean, I guess instead of doing it the way you've got it currently, Member Brinker, it could be making it a third choice for pay as you throw. Or, I mean, a third choice total. So one would be fixed size, one would be the 3 sizes, and one would be the 2 sizes.
Yep, that was my point.
I think our main point in doing this would be less for the cost savings angle, which would be literally cents, and more for the simplicity of running the overall program. Considering that probably the small size or the big size would work for almost all households. So just for simplicity, to narrow down the choices. We know that the cost difference won't be huge regardless, because we can go off of the bids that we got previously, the bids we scrapped, just for an idea of the difference in pricing between pay-as-you-throw and a uniform size. And the uniform size came to $18.90 a month for the first hauler and $18.55 for the other hauler. That's for uniform size. So $18 to $19. The pay as you throw came to $19.35 and $19.80. So it's somewhere between like 40 cents and $1 between pay as you throw and the uniform size. However, the smaller size, the 32 gallon, was way cheaper for people that would work for. So essentially, in order to do pay as you throw, every house is paying maybe say 40 cents more per month, so that other households who maybe can't handle or manipulate such a huge bin would have the option of lower. I don't know if that makes sense, but regardless, the middle price isn't gonna shift the cost that much one way or
Got
another,
it.
considering the only spread was somewhere between 40 cents and $1 some.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Thanks, Christine.
And just to put this out there as, you know, to be considered is, you know, maybe Member Brown would have a thought on this. For the people who would have trouble with a large bin, would a 64 also be trouble? Or like, you know, what if we, you know, the downside would be if we go with 32 and 96, if 32 is not enough and 64 would have been, then maybe it's better to do 96 and 64. If we think that 2 is going to be cheaper than 3 and 64 is something that people who have trouble moving things around would have trouble with, I don't know.
I'm sorry, are you asking me, Chair Green? My opinion?
Yeah, for the people that you know that
Mhm.
have trouble moving a cart around, would there be a difference between 32 and 64? Can you even picture what those are?
Yeah, it would be for me. I mean,
You'd prefer 32?
I would, just
Okay.
because I actually looked at my trash can and it's like a 10 gallon. It's and I don't even fill that up. And so I think there's a lot of single people, whether they're just single or they're seniors or they're handicapped. I would think 32, but that's
Okay.
just my opinion.
Thank you. Well, the motion stands with a second, so will you please take a vote, Director DeAndrea?
Yes. Chair Green,
Yes.
Vice Chair Borman,
Yes.
Member Brown,
I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask for clarification. Is it 32 and 96 we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
and Member Brinker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Want to bring up your next one, Member Brinker?
Sure. We're on a roll. I went through and looked at all our previous motions, and one of them from early on was to have a weekly option for recycling in the subsequent RFP. And I think the reasoning for that is to encourage recycling to the highest degree possible. But I wanted to make sure we still want to stick with that, given what we've learned about the cost of having that. And I don't know of anywhere else that has weekly. Most places that I know of are bi-weekly. So I just want to make sure we still want that old motion to go forward. The
Vice
main
Chair
question is
Borman.
weekly versus bi-weekly, sorry.
I'm okay with just bi-weekly. I definitely fill up my recycling bin every 2 weeks, but if we're trying to shoot for at least lowest cost for our constituents, I think we should shoot for the bi-weekly, because I think anytime we add another truck going down the alleyways just as a pass to look for more recycling, or we're running up the cost. So I think we should try and stick with bi-weekly.
Member Brown?
Is this recycling going to be mandatory to every citizen?
That's how it stands, yeah.
It's not that it's the recycling isn't mandatory, but the recycling is included in the cost that everyone would pay. And I do think that's a key difference.
So even though you don't recycle, you still are paying for recycling.
Yeah, we made it. That's one of the votes that went through, is we're forcing that everyone pays for recycling, whether you use it or not.
Do you feel that's okay with citizens?
Well, you could bring up a motion to try to alter that, like Member Brinker is doing with all of these, but that's the way it stands right now with our previous votes.
Okay, so if I want to make a motion that it's not mandatory.
I'll give you a chance though after we finish this, because
Okay.
we're in the middle of talking about this one.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. So what we're considering is whether we're going to take out the a la carte option of please tell us a price for weekly recycling in addition to bi-weekly recycling, because we think that there's no chance that weekly recycling is going to be a reasonable price. And I think that makes sense. Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, no, thanks for the clarification. No, I agree. Thank you.
Do you want to officially state this, Member Brinker?
Sure. Motion to change the recycling in the RFP to bi-weekly.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Member Kawanabe got it. Please take a vote, Director DeAndrea.
Yes. Chair Green,
Yes.
Vice Chair Borman,
Yes.
Member Brown,
Abstain.
Member Labe,
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
and Member Brinker.
Yes.
That motion carries.
thank you. Let's let's alternate Member Brown in here. Did you want to make a motion, Member Brown?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a popular one, but
Probably
Uh,
not.
quite honestly, but I don't think that, and I don't know if this is how you make a motion. I haven't done a motion, but I don't think that people that this recycling be mandatory for everyone, especially when you've got single people. I mean, I don't have anything to recycle. And so why am I paying for recycling? So I guess the motion would be not to make recycling mandatory. Does that make sense, Chair Green?
Yeah, that works. Does anyone want to second that?
Yeah.
I'll second it just so it can go on record. Second. Will you
Thank
please
you.
take a vote, Director DeAndrea?
Yes. Chair Green,
Yes, I don't think it should be forced paid for.
Vice Chair Borman,
No.
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Labe,
No.
Member Kawanabe,
No.
and Member Brinker.
No.
That motion fails.
All right, Member Brinker, what's next?
Um. Hold on, let me get my thoughts, 1 second. Let me find where my notes are.
I think all that's left is your one on the rate increases.
Right. I'm hesitant to bring it up honestly, because that meeting was such a bear of a meeting. But we did hear that if we have something that's extremely lower than the consumer price index, that they will just bump the costs up at the front end. And that had me concerned. So I wanted to make sure that we're still comfortable with our old motion, which, just for everyone's memory, was that the first 2 years of the contracts are fixed price, and then it could go up by the consumer price index, which is just the local inflation rate, but it was limited to 1% per year. That the inflation rate is usually around 3% per year. So they're going to add in the extra costs up front just to cover themselves for the next 5, 7, or 10 years. Probably more than if they just went with the inflation rate, because ahead of time, they don't know exactly what the inflation rate's going to be. So they're going to put a lot more to make sure that they cover it. An alternative would be to change that to just be the local CPI and limit it to 20% in 10 years or 2% a year or something like that. I'm okay sticking with what we decided before, because I know that that was such a difficult meeting, but I just want to make sure we're comfortable with the cost might be a lot higher at the front end, or see if we want to again offer in our menu of options what their cost would be if it's just plain tied to inflation.
Personally, I'm not inclined to make it easier for them to push the price higher. And the structure we have forces them to make it the actual price they're going to charge. And the price doesn't have to increase every year. We don't know if we're going to hit a recession or a depression or what's going to happen. And by automatically we've already got the ability for them to raise it 10% over the whole time. I don't know. I think I understand what you're saying, but I also feel like they should just deal with, I mean, I'd rather not have an automatic price increase. I'd rather have them just give us a price and that's the price. But I understand that that's the standard way of doing it. Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little nervous to relitigate this too. I sort of on the thought of Christine a little bit as well, in terms of that we should assume that prices will go up, but yeah, I don't know. Is it better to front load it or back load it? I don't know. Maybe people will appreciate the predictability over 10 years because we've limited it up to 10%. You know, I'm sort of just guessing off the top of my head that everything comes in around $20. And so that assumes by the end of 20 or after the end of 10 years, we hit $22 per person. You know, that's not too bad, you know, in terms of our citizens. And I think they might like that predictability. Now, if it was 25 and it bumps up to 27.50, again, they might like the predictability, but they might hate the price. So I don't know. Like, I'm not sure we should relitigate it in terms of either way. So if anybody else has any other input, I'm willing to continue to think.
Yeah, the way you laid that out, you know, I agree with you. I understand that. Member Brown.
Yeah, and please tell me if I'm off subject here, but I don't think that we should allow them to dictate to us what their price increase is. And maybe this is where I'm going out of bounds a little bit, and please let me know if I am. But there was someone from the utility service that was going on in the neighborhoods warning people of shut off on their water bills. And when we approached him, he said, oh, this is just some of them. There's a lot of them that are, their water's being threatened to turn off. And then we're adding this to their water bill. I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah, that's
how we can-
definitely separate from what we're talking about now, but that's
Okay.
something that you could bring up in member. You'll have a chance to bring stuff up like that at the
Okay,
end of the
then
meeting.
I'll do that. I'm sorry. I just
What
thought,
we're discussing right now is we have Director DeAndrea, could you please scroll on your screen just so everyone sees if they don't have it themselves, the thing we're talking about. Thanks. Currently we have, if everyone's looking at their screen or their printout or however they have it, I've got it on both. The old motion, we set up the price increase structure. We already have voted on that. It's what we decided we were going to go put into the RFP. And what Member Brinker is saying is that based on the feedback, because we heard how they like to raise their prices as much as they possibly can, which is of course the case, this is less than they would like to see, and it will force them to build it into the price that they give us, which could make the initial price that people have to pay be higher than if we structure it such that they have the ability to raise it later more. And, you know, I would argue that I'd rather just have it be the way it is, force them to build it in to whatever it needs to be, and then it's more straight up and citizens can evaluate that more clearly than allowing it to be such a massive more increase over time. Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I don't know. I had written down something here that was like, okay, you know, maybe they're not going to be able to increase it enough over the years. And it goes back to talking about the 10% sort of thing. So if it goes from 20 to $22, well, what if we say it's 15%. So it's more like we could give them up to 3 years of, or up to 5 years of 3%. And that would still, again, if it went from 20, it would go to $23 over a 10-year time period. You know, is that too much? I don't know. I guess, yeah, I still talking out loud here, just thinking out loud, because I'm unsure what to do with this one. I think it's okay as it is, but I think we are going to end up with higher upfront costs. But again, I think people might like the predictability over time. So
I agree. So do you want to present this as a motion, Member Brinker?
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure we fully considered it. So we can move on from there.
All right, and that's all you had, right?
That is all I had.
All right. Director DeAndrea, discussion regarding composting company. Do we have more on that? You're muted.
That was an item we didn't get to at the last agenda, but I think we're just, it wasn't that we hadn't gotten to it, but that we were gonna consider interviewing the composting companies, similar to the way that we did with the waste haulers, if that was of interest to the committee.
Does anyone feel strongly about that, Vice Chair Borman?
left my hand up, sorry.
Okay. I mean, I feel like if we're putting I don't know that we need, I mean, my gut is, I don't know that we need to interview composting companies, because it's probably just going to be the one who's already come to our meetings a couple times and sent us emails. I mean, unless someone knows there's other composting companies that might come. And then there's also that first of the 4 haulers that does a lot of that. So, you know, we've heard from, I think, everyone, and I think the separate RFP that we've talked about putting out should be pretty straightforward. Do you feel like you need information from compost company interviews for you to be able to do the separate compost RFP, Director DeAndrea?
No, I wanted to bring it up, just make
Okay.
sure, but I don't need that.
Does anyone else feel we need this? I'd say let that go then. All right, administrative fee review. Do you want to go over that with us, Director DeAndrea?
Yeah, let me just call up my screen here. One moment. All right. So we just, this had come up, I believe, in early March, that we wanted to just walk through how we had put together that admin fee and how we arrived at that number. So I'll walk through this memo and then be able to answer any questions. There were also a request for some of possibly the job descriptions, which are attached to this memo, but I'll just kind of walk through kind of the thought process of how we got to this administrative fee. So the administrative fee would be added on to whatever those services are that are selected from basically what the waste hauler is going to charge us. And then this would be added on to that. So in talking with other members of the organization, this was currently the idea is this would be the staffing that would be required to support this program. So we're looking at 1 full-time program coordinator, and this is the estimated wages, benefits, and taxes costs associated with that. Then there would be 1 additional billing specialist who would be part of the utility billing team that we currently have. And again, wages, benefits, and taxes, and then just a part-time, half-time code enforcement officer. So this results in a total cost of $210,500 annually. Those positions are all considered what we mean as exempt. So they are subject to annual increases as determined through the existing union contract. So we do look at basically everybody who's within this union contract, which are the exempt staff, are allowed via this contract, and that changes every 2 years. That's renegotiated, but that their raise, annual raise is included in that contract. We also undertake a compensation study every few years to ensure that the pay rates for positions are competitive with others in the local area. So for example, billing specialists for other entities throughout the Front Range are compared to make sure that that class of employee is being paid relatively within the range similar to other agencies and what they pay. So in determining that administrative cost, what we included were the personnel costs that I just detailed. We did anticipate the need for a vehicle for the code enforcement officer, and then as well as the communication pieces to all households. So we still, with our communications department, we still do a fair number of mailings, not just outreach via Twitter or Facebook. We do those things as well, but we still get a fair number of people responding to us that they like the mailed pieces, that those are important for them to receive information. So those costs of developing those pieces, printing and mailing them is included in this price. So you can see here that the yearly cost for that personnel is listed there. Then I've broken out the vehicle, which would be over 5 years. So this would be the annualized cost. Then communication pieces, we assume $4,500 per quarter. So our communications department would develop that piece in-house. And primarily that cost is for printing and mailing to all households. So this ends up being a yearly total. And then that's broken down over 99,360 accounts. So a cost per household per year, which is how we get to this monthly cost of $2.05. So we did reach out to some of the other cities and talk about what at the request of the committee and see what kind of staff they have. The city of Arvada does have 2 staff right now, utility billing associates. They're still working on their program. They're launching that in July of this year. City of Lafayette has no extra city staff that is dedicated just to garbage. So as it says there, they receive just the data dump in order so that they can send out the costs along with their water bills. So they already have staff who is available to do that. The city of Golden, and this is similar to other agencies as well, typically this program, garbage and trash, will fall under sustainability. We do not have a sustainability staff person currently within the organization. But right now Golden does have that position, and so they oversee the garbage program as part of their duties, as a significant part of their duties. City of Lakewood, similarly, although they don't have a single hauler program in place, they do have a sustainability manager, and so that effort to consider this through the city council and through the community was led by their sustainability manager. So with that, and then I have attached the job descriptions. If you have any questions on those or of any of that information, I'd be happy to talk to that. Thank you.
So the job description for program coordinator doesn't really match up at all, right? It's just.
No, we'd have to create one. Yeah.
So, I mean, can you tell us what that would actually be? Like, I'm not clear. I mean, we've got 3 other cities, Arvada, 2 people, Lafayette, no extra, Golden, 1 extra, and we need 2.5.
That's the feeling from staff right now. So again, that was not directed by me. That was the feedback of talking internally with the departments that would staff that. So, you know, if we could certainly go back and talk about that again, if this is conservative for the need to have, like, let's say the code enforcement officer, if we're reducing the amount of items that are potentially dumped in the alley, is there a need to have additional code enforcement, or could we maybe evaluate the number of calls that we get or the number of concerns about where bins are placed, whether people are conforming to the rules associated with that, and maybe add that on at a later date? That's a potential. you know, we are talking as well about a sustainability person. Could this be folded into that position discussion somehow? Certainly, you know, I think that's all of that is still on the table.
What is the expectation that we need more code enforcement than we currently have if we go to a single hauler?
I think because there's, so with a program where, let's say like this, where people are going to be more observant of how trash is handled, that there would be more calls to code enforcement for people, let's say, to put their bins back in the right place or put them in their garage or do whatever, that the calls, instead of going to the waste hauler, will probably come to the city to basically adjudicate those issues.
We're not creating any rules about having to move bins though. In fact, by having alley service, we're going back to the way it always was, where people can leave their bins at the alley at all times and never have to move them.
Yep, so I'm just passing on what the concerns were, so.
Remember Brinker?
I'm leaning towards kind of what you were getting at, Chair Green, to see if we could save a little bit of costs by perhaps seeing if we could not add that extra code enforcement.
I mean, I would think if we had a single hauler, there'd be less need for code enforcement than more.
Mhm.
Vice Chair Borman?
I'm totally in agreement with Chair Green and Member Brinker that I think the code enforcement, the likelihood, especially considering we were already talking about how they thought that you know, we were less likely or very unlikely to have problems with the trash pickup, missed pickups and things like that. I'm hoping we'll also have less problems with concerns about people leaving garbage cans out or you know, dumping garbage in the alley and things like that too, because we've already got kind of that managed. So I'm hoping that we don't need the code enforcement officer. And I think that that would be at least a good way to trim some maybe possible fat if we don't need it.
Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to cut this without having additional conversations with the people that this is actually going to take bandwidth away from their work, right? So is there going to be additional workload to the current code enforcement officers? Director, when was these numbers input? Was it recently that you requested this information?
No, it's been a while. So I think even we met even before maybe the RFP went out the first time. So it would have been over a year ago, I bet, when we last talked about this.
Yeah, and given all of the changes that we've made in this, it could be that this has changed. I'm with everybody else. I don't see an additional need for code enforcement, but again, I'm not in the program, right? And so they're probably seeing things that I'm not seeing. In fact, I know they are, right? And so maybe this is something that we bring back to them.
And then I had just a technical question. If you scroll down on your page, you've got the asterisk assumes 4,500 per quarter. What is that referring to? I don't see the asterisk anywhere.
I'm sorry, Chair Green, would you mind repeating that?
Okay, under monthly total, there's an asterisk definition. Number of households is assumed to be 9,360. And then the next line, there's an asterisk that says assumes 4,500 per quarter, but I don't know what that is related to.
Yes, thank you. So the one asterisk should be for the cost per household per year. So up here, if you can see my mouse or my arrow, and then the double asterisk should be here. So that assumes 4,500 per quarter for this communications piece.
Okay.
So 4,500 times. So that is incorrect. So that should be the double asterisk and the single should be up here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Mhm.
Any other questions on this? I mean, we've all covered the questioning the code enforcement, and I still wonder why, if Lafayette can do it with no extra staff and Golden can do it with one, why we need even 2 full-time people if the customer service is still going to be provided by the hauler, right? So we're not even providing customer service. We're just dealing with coordination and billing, which I sure hope would be pretty automated. So it just, to me, it seems like a lot to even have 2 people facilitate it, but I don't know if anyone else has anything to say on that. All right. Do you want to talk about this Boulder customer service thing?
Sure. And I will take that feedback back. Again, like I said, we're talking about the sustainability position potentially, so maybe this could be worked in there somehow. And excuse me. So yeah, I'll take that feedback. Thank you.
And then we also have this Boulder customer service write-up. Does anyone, I'd like to just address that here. If anyone had any questions for Director DeAndrea about that, I have a couple. All right, I'll ask one. So they plan to make all this happen by 2025 without doing single hauler, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's quite ambitious. So their goal, I don't know how much they're on target to be able to meet that goal, but it seems they are reporting out on that. The woman that I talked to said that it has been difficult through COVID to get compliance, as well as just seeing any new improvements in how they reduce that amount of waste going to the landfill, but they are still hopeful to meet that goal.
I mean, it's interesting that they're going so strict, like even forcing compost while allowing, while not even, so they're not even trying to do single hauler.
No, she said that was the lady that I talked to said that they had talked about that originally, but because they have quite a few haulers that service Boulder, whenever the decision was made originally, that this was the route that they took instead, to still allow that flexibility to property owners.
Any other discussion on this, Vice Chair Borman?
I thought that this was interesting to see, and but it's so funny because I guess if they're talking about 3 different companies going up and down, just roads and not alleyways and all that sort of stuff, it probably doesn't make as much of a difference in terms of the environmental sort of stuff as it would in Inglewood, where they're going to go up and down alleys and roadways and stuff. Because I don't think Boulder has very many alleys, but it's an interesting concept that if for some reason the single hauler doesn't work, I think that it's very good possibility that something like this could be feasible for Inglewood. It might be hard to get buy-in at first because Boulder is obviously a way more liberal city than us, but I think they lead in a lot of different issues, and I think things are probably moving at least this direction when it comes to homes, businesses, multifamily, all encouraging lower garbage, more recycling, and more compost. So I think it was an interesting thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that they're going to force composting. Member Brinker?
I thought the same thing. It was really interesting to read for a comparison and see how they're going. Less strict on the number of haulers, but way more strict on recycling and compost, not just for single family, but for HOAs, multifamily, commercial, all of that.
Yeah, and a lot of those dates have already passed, so they must already be in place. Did you have something else, Vice Chair Borman?
I guess I just wanted to see, Director DeAndrea, has there been any talk about at least adding recycling around all city buildings and things like that. I think almost every time I've been in city building, I haven't really noticed any recycling being done within the city itself.
Yeah, that's something we're working on. We need to do a better job of that. So we've just done some more within the Civic Center, but we need to do more at some of the other facilities and encourage more of that even within employees. So that is an area we need to work on.
Is it a possibility that we can put forth a motion to encourage the city council to take up, or at least to try and recommend that they discuss adding recycling or recycling in addition to waste services for all city-run buildings?
We
I
do
don't know if
have
it's really
that.
with it. Oh, go
Excuse
ahead.
me. We do have the ability to recycle. I think it's encouraging and making it convenient for people who are either at the facility or employees. So that's, we do have that option though currently.
I agree that it's a good thing to encourage that all the city properties should have it, Vice Chair Borman, but I would say that that would fall more under like, just show up at a city council meeting and speak to that rather, because it feels to me like that's outside the scope of what they've created this committee for, but you guys could feel different. Member Brinker?
I was just gonna say really quick that, if we're already doing a single hauler, I know it, I think in the original RFP, we put it out there to see if they would also offer services to the city as
True.
a part of this whole thing.
I
at the
think you're
very
right,
beginning.
yeah.
That's why I thought I remembered us thinking about this. And, it's like, if we're going to require our citizens to recycle, we should make it easy and available at all city run places, and at least inside, if not, outside sort of stuff, at least given the city center and our two different light rail stops within Inglewood. I think it's a worthwhile thing for us to at least try and push a little bit back, because if the city says no, you have to do this, and the city's like, oh, never mind, but we don't, I think that's kind of, we got to call it on BS. We have to make it easy for everybody, not just at our homes.
I think that's a great point, Vice Chair Borman. If you want to write up a proposed recommendation, then we could vote to like, you could make a motion in our next meeting to include that, or we could edit it in our discussion and then send that along. Member Brinker?
Do we know if they have anything like that in the recently released sustainability plan as part of the strategic plan? Something's particularly aimed at recycling or reducing waste in city properties?
I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check on that, Member Brinker. I don't recall seeing that, but I may not have been specifically looking for it either.
All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing no hands, we have to pick our next meeting, and then what is the status of the RFP?
Yes, so with these changes tonight, I had updated all the previous changes, so I can make these changes and get the draft document out to you probably by the end of the week.
Okay, so then if we stuck to our schedule, then our next meeting would be the 10th, and we would have a week to review the RFP draft prior to that meeting. Okay. Does anyone object to that? Is a week enough for everyone to be able to review the RFP? How many pages do you think it'll be? Like 50?
I believe the previous one with all the attachments was around 75. But the bulk of, the text that you'd be reviewing is probably in that 20 to 25 range.
Okay.
And I have called out the page where each of these items is listed so that if you just want to look at the changes that we made, you can flip to those relatively easily.
Thank you. Does anyone want to bring up potentially pushing our meeting so that you have more than a week to review this before we start discussing it? Or does everyone feel comfortable with 1 week to be able to review it?
I like staying on the schedule if possible.
I think I could be okay with a week.
Same.
Okay, let's stick with that then. So we'll keep our, so it'd be the 10th, right?
Yep.
And we will definitely have to stop by 8 that night because I have to appear before city council right after 8 that night. All right, chairperson's choice. This would be an opportunity to bring something up if you wanted to, Member Brown.
Thank you.
Or I'm sorry, I called it chairperson's. I don't have anything else. Committee member's choice.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Yeah, I'm just having some problems, I guess, with what we've done here tonight. And so I'm just going to express how I'm feeling. I just feel like there are a lot of people right now getting these hangers on their doors saying their water is going to get turned off because they don't have enough money to pay for their water. And we're going to be adding these charges to their water bill, you know, and these new hires or new employees, I think it's over the top myself. And then you're also, we as a committee are saying you all have to recycle, and that's going to add even more money to the bill. And where's that recycling going? Because to me, it's just going to go into a landfill. I've heard so many opinions on this, and they all say it'll end up in a landfill, and it's just one more way for the single trash haulers to make money. And we voted tonight, and we're going to have worse service than we have now as far as the bags go. So I'm not sure how we're helping citizens here. You know, if they can't pay their, people are having problems paying their water bill. We're getting, I don't understand how this helps. And we're hiring new people, and I just don't understand how this helps the citizens of Inglewood at all. So that's all I have to say. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Member Brown. Member Branker.
I wanted to mention that every household is already required to have trash service by law. And anyone who doesn't have trash service is literally breaking the law. And if you don't pay the current providers, they won't keep coming either. But this does offer an option for Inglewood residents who can't pay the bill, considering city council and our own deliberations. We're discussing a fund that would help citizens who can't pay their bill to be able to continue. And the private providers aren't gonna do that out of the goodness of their heart. So essentially, we'll be able to help more families through this. And another couple follow-up thoughts about your good points. One of the things you said is, where's the recycling going? We heard that there are some issues, particularly with plastic recycling, some, but not all of the plastic. But on the other hand, we heard that all of the cans, all of the glass, all of the paper gets recycled and reused within our own region, within our own state. So I don't think we can characterize the part of the plastic that's not recycled as ruining the entire recycling industry. And then just the last thing about voting for worse service. Tonight, we didn't vote for worse service, but we did vote to add that as an option in the RFP so that we can see the data that comes back. And if the data comes back and we look at it for the previous option, then that's what we'll discuss as a committee. We didn't vote for sure to go with that. We just discussed getting the option in the RFP responses. Thanks.
Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I guess I just was going to try and echo I do think the recycling matters. I think that it is an important thing that we can do in this world generally. And I think it is an important thing that we try and encourage our citizens to do it. It doesn't mean that you have to do it, but I think that it's a base function of this world now. I'm sorry, everybody buys things. We all have stuff that needs to be recycled, and I think it is important. I also think that one of the goals of this committee is to try and drive down prices. That's the economy of scale. We tried to extend the length of time of our contract. We tried to alter things to try and give us a better idea of how we can give as good of quality of service with as much bang for their buck. So I'm really hoping that this is actually a benefit to our people rather than not, because the last time I checked out my waste management, I believe we were almost $100 every quarter. So, we were up there in that $33-ish a month. And I'm hoping we come in significantly under that. So I hope that this will actually be a boom to our city of Inglewood that I love. I'm going to live here till the day I die. So I hope that this is a good thing. That's it.
Well, I love Inglewood too, and I've been here for over 20 years, and I hope that what we get back from this is not a reduction in service, but I don't think there's a chance of it by giving them the options we've given them. They're going to just feel that's a perfect way to make it so that they can structure it to, we're enabling them to phase it out. We're making it easier for them to drop the service level. There's no way we're going to end up with the existing service level that they currently offer for $16, which is what lots of people are paying. All right, we're at 8:07. We've completed our agenda. We'll meet next time on the 10th. Have a good night, everyone. We're adjourned.
Good night, everybody.